I take a little break, and these people try to ban cannabis. Well, welcome back, folks. We're live for another episode of the Cole Memo, and we're going to talk about what I was just alluding to. But since we are live, as we go through, feel free to drop your comments. I see some people have dropped comments. I will acknowledge them here in just a moment. I just want to say why we're having today's show. So, the United States Senate recently voted to recriminalize cannabis products that have been federally legal for about the past 8 years or so. If you've bought these products at your local Neiman's or Target or Circle K or other retail outlets, or if you've even had them delivered through apps like Grubhub or from, a local friend, you may have recognized that some of the brands that are found in dispensaries, or like I said, maybe you've taken it a step further and connected with a local grower who knows their craft. Whatever the case may be, if the House passes this measure and the president signs it into law, it would essentially mark the end of an era, a time where more cannabis products than ever before were available under a descheduled framework. For the first time in modern history, folks, you could access legally cannabis products that weren't treated as controlled substances that were on par with heroin and other drugs. And as a consumer, this framework has provided me greater access to the cannabis plant than any state-run program that I've been a part of. And let's not forget, it also reignited the modern era of cannabis research by allowing universities to study the plant again because it was no longer classified as a controlled substance. It also sparked a new generation of geneticists, people that were no longer forced to pretend that seeds were novelties because we could just call them hemp now, and it was all good. In all those ways and so much more, this potential change in policy directly affects me as a consumer. But today I'll be joined by someone who is impacted in other ways by what's unfolding. Before we bring them on, let's watch a brief news clip featuring somebody that's not me, telling you exactly what has been going down. If you haven't already, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thank you for tuning in. We are live, so drop your comments below, and I'll acknowledge them here in just a moment. But again, here is this news clip. Let's watch it. It's short.
Hemp-derived THC products could be on the chopping block as Washington lawmakers move forward with a Senate deal to end the now 41-day government shutdown. The Senate made progress toward reopening the government as enough Democrats split from their caucus to join Republicans in voting 60-40 on an updated stopgap funding bill. The deal contained a continuing resolution to open the government through January 30th and 3 full-year 2026 appropriation bills. One of the 3 proposed full-year bills, the Agricultural Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration, and Related Agencies Appropriations Act, contained language that would ban most hemp products. The bill, quote, prevents the unregulated sale of intoxicating hemp-based or hemp-derived products, including Delta-8, from being sold online, in gas stations, and corner stores, while preserving non-intoxicating CBD and industrial hemp products. The hemp industry has been raising alarm bells about the possibility of a hemp ban in recent weeks. The U.S. Hemp Roundtable, an industry advocate, called the inflection point DEFCON 1 for hemp in a post on X.
All right. So we'll be discussing all of that and more right here on this episode of
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
Once again, we are live on YouTube, Twitter, and more. It looks like we have just a little bit over 10 viewers. So thank you for tuning in. Drop your comments below. We can acknowledge them along the way. I'm about to be joined by Mason Lopez. Mason's going to be coming back onto the show. Mason, how's it going? You're sitting sideways. Always in the days. That's a song by Paul Wall for folks that are wondering. How's it going, Mason?
It's good. It's good. Yeah, I keep having to flip it, but yeah, no, it's a hard question to answer right now. Like, even just going around today, how are you doing? it's one of those times where, like, man, I don't want to just, dump everything on you right now because, yeah, I mean, it's going good, but there's a lot going on and some pretty unfortunate stuff with the spending bill. Um, and then, that's conflicting too because you want the government to open up, especially for like the SNAP EBT situation, but you don't want hemp to get banned in the process. So, yeah, it's an interesting time right now.
Straight up, straight up. Tell the folks where they can find you online, and if you want, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sundrenched farm.com is our website. Um, we've been farming hemp. I've been farming hemp for it's about 4 years now on the family farm, 100% family owned and operated, as grassroots as it gets, as far as funding and everything. Cultivated, processed solventlessly by hand. All the products are developed, formulated by us. It's a very small batch, usually like made to order. So check us out, Sun Drenched Farm. I'm on Instagram at Resin Farmer Mace, and the Sun Drenched Instagram is also sun_drenched_farm. Yeah, we'll be around for at least one more year.
We'll throw those links in the show notes so that you can connect with Mason if you'd like. I know that a lot of different people enjoy the variety of products that you offer. As I've said in the past, I've tried some of Mason's products and they've all been nothing short of delightful, I'll just say. So if you'd like to check out the links in the show notes, I will add those links after the fact so that you can connect with Mason. And again, thanks, folks, everybody, for commenting. We'll try to open up for comments here in a little bit, but I will just acknowledge I definitely Genetic Memory Farm says sounds like you're going to have Tom Howard on. Looks like
Okay.
Tom Howard is tuned in. I would love to have you on, Tom. If you want to call in later, we're going to have callers. If not, we can just do another podcast another time. Birdie Durger, somebody that has my favorite username I think ever, just because it's fun to say, is tuned in. He says, "Evening, folks. Good evening, Birdie." Well, okay. Seriously though, this time, tell us how you doing. What's because that's that's kind of the point of
That's true.
bringing you on here. Like feel free. You've told us what you do, so maybe now your answer will make more sense to people when you do tell us how
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, not try to. I even made like a little story earlier that I tagged you in. It was like I've been trying to hide it or think positive, but man, it sucks. You build a business for 4 years, and we're entirely CBD. We have some THC products. I do a syrup, hash rosin syrup. That's THC, and I just dropped a soda that's THC, but pretty much everything we do is CBD focused. I've really had an amazing time, and it was a new challenge for me when we started to cater towards, CBD consumers because it's an entirely different consumer group than THC. But this bill, makes it so we can't offer those CBD products, the solventless CBD. Just a little note, truly effective CBD needs to have some THC in it. The synergy between the two cannabinoids and then the hundreds of other compounds is essential to actually delivering the effect, the relief that people are looking for. So yeah, it's a gut punch. It's a gut punch, and it's really a shame in a lot of ways. It's really, man, like it's kind of endless in the ways that it's a shame. It's a shame that we're experiencing prohibition again. It's a shame that we have cannabis industry and people who claim to be cannabis centered calling for the prohibition and applauding it. And I understand it's complex. You have the two industries of cannabis and hemp, but at the end of the day, when we talk about progress for the plant, this is a step backwards. So on an individual level, man, it's a bummer to lose what you've been building for 4 years. Um, that being said, I'm still grateful for the time I had. This is my dream. My dream was always to live in the middle of nowhere, grow weed, and just have my family around. And I got to do that for the last 4 years. So grateful for that, but it's definitely a bummer to look like we're gonna have to close our doors over the next year. But yeah, we'll see what the next chapter brings. But as of right now, it's heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I apologize for this brief, I don't even know if this is how you say it, editorial break, but I feel like every time I click something on here is when your screen goes side. Oh, it didn't do it that time.
Yeah, it did. It does
Okay.
keep flipping though. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was me that there it
Oh, there
is.
you go.
See,
Yep.
I'm doing it. I think I'm doing it. So sorry. I apologize that you're having to fidget with your phone. I'll try to
Nah,
figure out a different way.
it's just a representation of how I feel right now. So
Yeah, you're getting flipped upside down.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
accurate.
Okay. Well, so were you like watching this develop last night, kind of like biting your
Yeah,
nails? Yeah.
yeah, I've been watching it pretty closely. I don't remember when I first kind of alarm bells went off. But I mean, we knew that they've been trying to put hemp language in the spending bill for a while. To be honest, I wasn't too worried at first. If you want to go a week back, I wasn't really too worried until maybe last night, 2 nights ago. Um, yeah, I mean, once it was all coming down to Rand Paul, you know, I was still optimistic, but I was pretty yeah, pretty worried, more worried than I've been in a long time because the threat of a ban to the hemp industry has been there for since I started the company. So with that little bit of fear, I was just kind of used to living with, but yeah, it got a lot more real in the last couple days.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, it's like I say, I'm still my thoughts are still developing, but it's just interesting to me the number one thing I've been seeing online, and I'll throw up different things I've seen online here in a little bit, and definitely folks comment because we want to hear your perspectives as well. But I just find it frustrating because it seems like a lot of the discussion is always about like synthetics
Yep.
and delta 8 and people bring up poison and like pesticides and
Yeah.
crazy stuff, and it's just like I don't know, for me as a person who's not had a problem purchasing cannabis since before it was legal, since before the farm bill, since before I
Yeah.
had ever had any experience with the state legal cannabis program. I don't know, for me, I just like feel kind of confident in my vetting skills. Am I saying they're 100%? Absolutely not. I'm sure I've smoked contaminated cannabis in the past or whatever, but I don't know, it seemed like that was the focus of this conversation versus like, okay, it's like maybe some of those things are valid conversations to have, but instead of having that conversation of like how we improve the framework,
Yeah.
it seemed like right here, Tom is saying diversion, inversion, cover for drug cartels, money laundering, selling to kids, etc. That's a great thank you for like building upon our list because like instead of like I don't know. I just struggle with these are the conversations we're having, but instead of proposing any solutions to those issues, we're just talking about like banning it altogether. Um,
Yeah. No,
that's where that's go ahead. Sorry.
no, I think that's the perfect kickoff point because especially for me, because it's like, look, like, yeah, this sucks for me personally. But truly, I am most bummed about the fact that we are losing access for patients. In my opinion, the best opportunity for descheduled, decriminalized, full access, a functioning and prospering cannabis industry was hemp. You had a blank slate. The cannabis industry is overregulated, it's overtaxed, it's really hard to roll those things back. It would have been not really easy, but it would have been a much more feasible effort, in my opinion, to use hemp as the blank canvas to draw what descheduling cannabis would look like.
And we
To draw,
started we started to see a lot of the brands in the dispensaries start to do exactly that,
yeah,
advertise selling, I'm getting ads for their products on different social media that I use, and it's like, "Buy us, we'll deliver it right to your door." And it's like, That's what I thought. Um, that's what I thought the future of legalization would be. You know, it's another thing that people like kind of smear, and we've got comments coming in that we'll acknowledge here in a moment. But people will say like this gas station weed, and it's like I remember when I first heard of legalization in 2012, and I've told this story like a time or two on
Yes.
the podcast. I remember calling my friend in Washington at the time and being like, "Oh, does that mean like at your gas station right now, like next to the cigarettes, they've got like weed, you know?" And he was like, "Well, no, not yet," because it took them a while to get the framework developed and everything. But
Yep.
anyways, that was like my first thought. Like I was aware of medical dispensaries, but I thought that was just like a, for lack of better words, vestige of being like, oh, it's medical. And I want to be clear when I put it in air quotes like that, I don't want anybody to get offended and be like, are you saying it's not medical? No, 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 I'm not. But we'd be fucking pretending if
Yeah.
if we weren't honest with ourselves and kind of used medical as a loophole, if you will, in the
Yeah.
very beginning, to sort of shoehorn in adult use legalization. I think organizations like Normal are very open and honest about like that kind of was the strategy. But
Yeah.
anyways,
No,
I
I
digress.
think
Like,
I think that's a great point because that's one of the arguments that'll be made about hemp is that, oh, it was a loophole. And look, whether or not it was or wasn't, and I really don't think that it was. I think Mitch McConnell was well informed. I forgot who his like advisor was, but he was well informed on what was happening. But yeah, medical was what opened the door for cannabis legalization, if you
yeah,
want to call it that. I wouldn't call what we have legalization, but a step forward for sure, from 10, 20, 30 years ago. um, and so what if hemp was, and which again I don't think it was, but in my head it's always been, what is the most functional way forward? How do we craft the most thriving, the optimal industry for consumers, for the providers, for the companies? It's just, what are those steps forward? And I think hemp was that future because cannabis is just too over regulated. Um, man, I had a point I was going to make earlier on. Oh, all the problems that people bring up with hemp. I think that's the great way to start because that is my thing is, okay, what's the problem here? Is it the child safety? Okay, so we age gate, which 90% of the industry is doing. So we get those regulations on the books. Is it pesticides, chemical use? So we get regulations on the books. You know, as- there are all these simple steps to make and things that the hemp industry was asking for. And to me, it's all just scapegoats for big cannabis, for big alcohol, all the players that didn't want to see cannabis thrive. They want to lock it in a little box, and that is the cannabis industry right now. The regulated cannabis industry is a nice little box that they put off to the side, so they can keep doing their thing, and it's not functional. And if you're gonna say, because people will bring up, hemp isn't tested, it has pesticides. I mean, I can look at a headline where, was it just in Illinois where a company tested for pesticides on finished products in the dispensary? So are we gonna ban the cannabis industry now and craft a whole new one?
yeah,
It's
I'm not familiar with that, but I will say like other states like California, for example, investigative reporter Paige St. John has found that like most of the products in the dispensary use like off-label pesticides. Like in other words, they just use the
yeah,
pesticides that aren't like restricted.
yeah,
But then she also found that quote unquote illicit cannabis actually used most of the known pesticides, which I found interesting. So in other words, like in her findings, which you can look up, she works with the LA Times folks, and she did a podcast with Adam Conover. She went in and bought weed from the dispensary and found that a lot of, yeah, some of it, I should say, had pesticides in it. So didn't
yeah.
mean to derail your point. I did want to acknowledge some
No,
comments here in a moment, but
yeah. No, I'll just finish it off with, like,
yeah,
there was issues on both sides. We had both ends of the extreme, and we're trying to land in the middle. And to me, it was always just, what's the most functional way to do that? And this wasn't it.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
And we'll get right back to that. One of the things I just wanted to say is that I just want to acknowledge Tom said that, as far as the intent of the farm bill, that what a comment that was made was totally wrong. He says that's not in the congressional record at all. And I will actually agree. One of the points I always say, first of all, what I've learned, and I'm curious Tom's perspective on this, is that intent in a law is irrelevant when you look at the plain language. But I would actually agree that, of course, Mitch McConnell did not intend for the market to take shape in some of the ways that it has, and some of the ways that I enjoy it, particularly. Let's just say, I don't think he intended that, right? But
Yeah.
I think that's also giving Mitch McConnell and other lawmakers a little bit too much credit. These people don't write their laws. Other
Yeah.
PACs write it. And so my belief has been that somebody added that language in the Farm Bill, which pretty much legalized these cannabis products, most cannabis products. They knew what they were doing, but they were just kind of like, everybody just shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
not a loophole because the language is pretty clear.
Yeah.
It's very clear actually when you read it. I mean, if it has less than 0.3% delta 9, then it's hemp. It's pretty clear, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I get the point. I'm curious on that point of intent being irrelevant, because again, I it doesn't matter really what the people felt in the room. It's what matters is what they wrote down. And that's
Yeah.
how this has been functioning. And so I don't know. I've just always questioned, okay, yes, I agree. The 0.3% THC thing is silly. It's an
Yes.
arbitrary classification. So let's just deschedule the entire plant. And here we are back at the point you were just making. I think this is really what the debate comes down to, Mason. It's about how the market looks, and currently hemp licensing is open
Yeah.
and marijuana licensing is not. But what I mean for that, for new viewers, is the state legal cannabis programs. They're federally known as marijuana. I know a lot of people don't like to use that word nowadays, but that's the federal arbitrary classification for the plant. In other words, for the cannabis plant that has an excess of 0.3% delta 9. It's silly.
Right.
It's so silly.
Yeah.
And actually, in a weird way, Mason, first of all, we should just say that this isn't done yet. It's got to go through the House and it's got to be signed by the president. The president, I've seen reporting, is supportive
Yeah.
of this ban, it sounds like. But we'll see what happens in the House. I have a feeling it's going to go through the House. Let's say it does in a weird way. And please don't take this the wrong way, but I just wonder if we're going to finally be able to get on the same page. All right, we got the silly hemp thing out of the way.
Right.
Can we all and I think really what the debate's going to wrap back around to is exactly what you were just talking about, which is just market structure, because that's all this debate has ever been about, by the way. Nobody wants to sell harmful products. Everybody agrees
Right.
that we should ID and label products so people know what they're buying. So I don't know.
No, I mean,
What say you?
I would agree. My position has always been limiting the licenses to artificially inflate the value. I don't see the long term intelligence there unless this is going to remain a scheduled drug. Because when you talk about interstate commerce, when you talk about opening up possibly international commerce, just anybody who's limiting licenses is going to get destroyed. So, I mean, to me, a functional industry would always be an open industry, similar to like hemp licensing. It might be a little bit more expensive than what hemp licensing has been, but I don't see the functionality benefit of limiting licensing.
I actually will push back just softly by
Okay.
saying that cities and towns could perhaps set their
Yeah.
own,
Yeah.
but I think we agree that it just feels like the state setting one is just like, I
For
don't
real.
know.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. And I would completely agree with that. Yeah, I think the right should always come down to the, municipality on whether or not or how much they want to allow, whether or not they do at all, sure. Um, yeah, I don't quite understand. I do understand the short-term benefit for limiting licensing as far as, monetarily, but I don't understand the thought of crafting a functional market off of it.
Yeah, and I wanna address this comment and encourage others to drop their comments. It looks like we have about 40 viewers between different platforms. If you're viewing on Instagram, by the way, I can't see your comments. Jump on over to YouTube. But Tom says, there's about 95% of US chicken farms under contract, and they control about 20 companies, no limited licenses. That's why. And I actually, like, agree with that point. That's why, one of the proposals I've put forth is, like, sort of taking the best parts that I think come from the current cannabis law, which there is one license cap that I actually like from the current law, and it's the ownership license cap.
Yeah.
It makes it, and I'm flexible on the numbers, but in Illinois, the numbers are you can have 10 dispensaries and 3 cultivation centers. I think that's so the idea is that um, no one person
Yeah.
can get a larger footprint than another person. Again, I could bend on if you think it should be 20 dispensaries and 10
Right.
whatever the number, I don't care, but just have a equal footprint to sort of prevent what has occurred in other industries, which is oligopolies from taking form, which is funny because kind of still have that in the state of Illinois for cannabis, despite
Yeah.
those provisions
Correct.
I'm talking about. But you get what I'm saying, like
Yeah, I mean, to me, there would always be the Walmart of weed, and then there would always be mom and pop shops, just as
right,
long as that option is there, and the barrier to entry isn't so tall like it is now.
yeah,
Um, yeah, to me, that would always be a functional industry, and I love the idea of limiting ownership to a certain amount. Um,
right.
and I wouldn't, yeah, again, I wouldn't think it has to be crazy to where everybody has to be exactly the same size, but just so it allows the small people to play.
Right. Yeah, to put it another way, the Parabola Center says, "Do not limit the number of licenses that can be issued, but limit the number that any one entity can hold."
100%.
So that, you don't see something crazy. And again, yeah, you'll have a Walmart, but the idea is that you would leave space for mom and pops still because there wouldn't be, a cap on the issuance of licenses.
Yeah. And can you break down Tom's comment for me? So what was the point there? The 95% of chicken farms.
Well, I think the point is, and I could be wrong, so Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the point is that there are not caps like that in chicken farms. So 95% of chicken farms are split between 20 people. And it's like, I think that's what he's saying. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if like, cause I'm just taking that comment for the figures for what they're worth.
So he's saying by not limiting licensing that it allows for a bigger division of ownership, or like you know what I mean, as far as like a few companies owning more. I don't that's what I don't understand the point there.
You know
Because
what?
he's saying because it's so open that it's not
The
equal.
higher I get, the more I don't know either. But I will say the lines are open at
There you go.
colememo.com/live if people want to call in. Tom, you specifically, it's StreamYard. So if you go to colememo.com/live and hit the say or hit the click here to join me on live stream, it'll take you to the StreamYard if you want to jump in. Or if others want to jump in too, you're welcome. Anyways, though, Mason, while we wait for the phone lines and I keep flipping you sideways,
That's okay.
um, any other thoughts just on this entire topic? Wanted to
Yeah,
continue to give you
yeah.
space.
Patient access is something I'm really scared of. So after a year, when we go away, small farms go away. Something that was already scaring me while I was still a part of the market is the gross lack in quality CBD products. There are some better ones out there, but just that, the fact that full spectrum is considered from distillate right now is crazy. It shines a light on the education problem that we have. And to explain it, when you distill, when you make distillate, you're distilling the extract at over 300 degrees. You're boiling off, I don't know what the percentage is, but most of the compounds. You know, when you end up with distillate, you have cannabinoids, CBD, CBG, maybe some CBC, um, and then maybe some reintroduced terpenes. Um, Probably not within naturally occurring ratios anymore because they've been boiled, but you've lost so many different compounds. And it's you know, we're not developed enough to even tell you exactly what you lost, because the stuff we do know about, flavonoids, flavorants, thiols, esters, we're not even able to quantify all those things right now, let alone the compounds that we are not aware of yet. So the products right now are already super under quality to what it really should be to give people the effect that they need, especially when you're talking about much more health compromised individuals, people suffering from Lyme disease, people, you know, treating cancer. Like it's as serious a problems as you can get that people are using CBD to help treat, if even if it's just finding relief. Um, you're not going to find that in a dispensary. And I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that that changes over the next few years, because that's the only place people are going to really be able to find it, besides like maybe like a very strong isolate that just has absolutely zero THC, but that product is grossly under effective compared to a product that has all the other compounds in it. And I'm not just talking again about cannabinoids, but a full spectrum product that has the hundreds of compounds that you would get if you're consuming flour. So I am terrified for the people who rely on CBD that are going to go to a dispensary and find zero to very little options. And the options that they do have are not going to be high quality because those dispensaries are not focusing on CBD at all. If it doesn't have 30+% THC, they don't take a second look. You know, and that's an exaggeration, but to make the point of they're not worried about CBD. So where are these people going to get their medicine from? That's what I'm worried about. So hopefully when the hemp industry goes away, something changes in the dispensary and people start to care a little bit about the CBD patients, because they're going to be looking for somewhere to go. So maybe when they start getting more people walking in through the door, you know, just needing to find that medicine, they'll start taking something on. But at that point, I still don't see it being a high quality product. It's going to be, if you're lucky, distillate and probably isolate based.
Yeah. We've got some callers on the line we'll bring on here in just a moment, but Tom did follow up and say that's why you have to limit them. So he's talking about like, hold on, the comments are jumping really quickly. He
Nice.
was mentioning Amazon and Walmart, and he was basically saying you have to limit the licenses. But my question to you, Tom, is I think we're on the same page, but you're saying limit the license. He says no license limits. You get Walmart and Amazon, no mom and pops. But my thing is, I'm saying don't limit the number of licenses that you issue. Limit the number of licenses any one entity can have. That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. To prevent, there would still be I'm not saying somebody can't get big, but they wouldn't have like 40, or I guess what I'm just trying to say, they wouldn't have more than anybody else could have, is my point. You get what I'm saying? Same footprint.
I get what you're saying. I'm confused. I'm still just confused on what Tom is saying, because that, to me, 1+1 doesn't equal 2 there. You know, like
Well, again, Tom, please clarify. We're going to bring Michael Thompson up briefly. I'm just acknowledging Jace, maybe his comment. He says, here's the compact lethal version. Calling hemp a loophole collapses the moment you remember cannabis was outlawed by a loophole, the 1937 tax scheme created specifically because of Henry Anslinger. I never thought of it that way. So
need to bring Jazz on. That was a great point.
Yeah. Michael, how's it going? Any
Doing
thoughts
well,
you want to
dude.
share?
Yeah,
Hey,
absolutely.
Michael.
How y'all doing?
Oh, I think you're muted, or is it me?
Oh,
I can hear him. I can hear him.
okay. Yeah, so the thing with limited licensing, when you're talking about like states in Florida or Illinois, what one of the unintended consequences, and I know you differentiated between limited licensing of operators and retail locations, but specifically on the operators in states like Florida where it's vertical integration, I was consulted for some of the largest MSOs in the country, and I can tell you, when you have a limited licensing, it breeds inefficiency in the organization. And that ultimately not only deprives economic opportunity and liberty from the consumers or just the public as whole, but it also kind of screws over investors. And that, you have a lot of things where it might not, they might be in remiss of their fiduciary obligations. And in a free market, they wouldn't be able to get away with these things. But when you're using the government's monopoly on violence to force people to buy from a handful of companies, you're going to have subpar products. You're going to have significantly higher prices, um, frequent product shortages. And when you see that, that's just kind of a red flag. And I think the market has kind of reflected that with some of these companies, where even on the IR space and the investor relations space, you'll see some of these shows where if someone's of a CEO or critical of a company, that CEO won't come on their show anymore. So everything's buttered up, everything's painted through rosy glasses and sunshine and rainbows. When in reality, the company could be defrauding investors, doing backroom deals with politicians, and making donations to schools that their kids go to. And meanwhile, they're still losing money quarter after quarter. One of my biggest fears after this hemp ban thing, and I'm seeing a lot of nasty comments between the hemp, mostly from the MSO bros, like attacking the hemp companies, is like I don't know if they realize, but if you look at the recent Gallup poll with Republicans, right, and that's where the biggest opportunity is in the red states for the cannabis industry. You've seen massive a drop in support, about 13 points, and for Republicans to support legalization of marijuana. And I feel like they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot right now. And I don't think
Yeah.
it's gonna. I think there's a tidal wave where we kind of were at peak support for marijuana legalization, and now because of all this infighting and everything, it's just really sad to see, and I don't see it being any good for the next few years.
Yeah. Mason, are you back with us? How's it
Yeah.
going?
Now I can hear.
Well, Michael, yeah, I think that was really well said. And I hope you call into the show again in the future, man, because couldn't have said it better myself. And I really do hope that things become better. Mason, he was just kind of recounting on he had observed a lot of what we've seen, which is just that the kind of the narrative, or I would even say the discussion online has become very vitriolic and inflamed, I think is a
Yeah.
good way of putting it. And yeah, yeah, I wish you could have heard what he was saying. Michael Mason was saying that he wasn't able to hear you during your part. I could. I think our listeners could too, because they've been commenting along the way.
Yeah,
So
I'll have to go back and listen to it.
yeah, yeah. But I do want to thank you for calling in, and please, feel free to continue to hang on, or um, call back in the future. I do want to ask you really quick, just for our listeners. It was pretty easy to call in, right? You just went to colememo.com/live, tap the button, and it wasn't very complicated, right? Yeah. You there? Can you hear me? Maybe he can't hear me. All right. Well,
It's
I will let you
contagious,
go.
the not being able to hear.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe he got kicked off audio when you dropped back on.
Now,
I'm
now
not
it's
sure.
back for me too.
Oh,
I'll jump. Let me.
okay. Can people hear me right now? We're live. We're live on the internet. People drop your comments if you can still hear me. I hope you can. We're having a little bit of problems on the studio.
We're
Mason,
live.
you can hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Aaron says yes, Cole.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point, and that's why, like, I really try to calm down, come to center, because yeah, I don't know. I see it as such a missed opportunity losing the hemp industry, and the conversation has gotten so. inflamed is a great way to put it. And it's just the opposite of what this plan is supposed to be doing in society. So it's just really a shame that it's gotten to that point.
What do you think the future looks like? Because that's what I'm wondering right now.
Oof.
If this
Well,
actually, let's say this actually goes through, what do you think? Because again, it's an open question. We should reestablish that. Like it's not a done deal. I think it's going to happen, but it's
yeah,
not
I'm pretty.
technically done yet. So I
Yeah,
wanted to just be accurate as of the time of this recording. But what do you think the future holds if this does come to pass?
probably not much as far as like change. Like if descheduling was truly an option, we wouldn't be seeing a hemp ban. So I think and I don't even want to say I think personally I rather it stay as it is than go Schedule 3. So stagnation. Hopefully we don't roll anything back anymore, because this is already a rollback in my opinion. So I don't know. I'm not optimistic. To be honest, I was optimistic when we had hemp on the table. Again, my opinion was blank canvas, craft the functional industry, and now it's going to be really tedious. We already see, the efforts through the regulated cannabis industry right now, safe banking and the VA, how that just failed, trying to so veterans can get access.
Oh yeah, by the way, happy Veterans Day for any veterans that are tuned in or family of veterans. I should have said
Absolutely.
that. But I said it. This was a good question that we just got that kind of just took my attention. I've seen commentary online that states like Minnesota will effectively be closed down, if you will. Because Minnesota codified these changes, and that's why you can see drinks at Target and your local movie theater or retail store. But the question for listeners is there going to be states that make their own markets and ignore federal law, just like we're doing now with cannabis? I don't. From what I understand, since they just basically codified the federal law. If federal law changes, that essentially nullifies that. That's my layman understanding. So I don't think so. Because again, these markets were all just based under that federal sort of interpretation of the cannabis law, if you will, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
And Tom just commented and said, yeah, the feds would have to enforce, they would be out of compliance. So maybe they just amend their cannabis programs. And that's a good point. And he said, gotta commute, peace out. So see you, Tom. Thank you for tuning in. But no, that's a good point. Like, I mean, you got to wonder, like, if this comes to pass, will you see Minnesota be like, wow, that was a good thing. Let's change our cannabis laws, and start allowing that somehow. I don't know if we'll.
I doubt it, but that would be great.
That would be cool, right?
That would be great. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's all we can hope for at this point. From what I understand, like the route to amending those laws, like we just said with safe banking, like it has not been successful. So it's
one thing I found interesting online was it was reported by Marijuana Moment. They said, I believe this is Marijuana Moment. They reported manufacturers of beverage alcohol, one of the most highly regulated consumer products, urged the Senate to reject Paul's attempts to allow hemp-derived THC products, which some people may have heard about. But they said in a statement, we stand ready to work with Congress and the administration to enact meaningful regulations to protect consumers and ensure a safe, orderly marketplace for these intoxicating products once this loophole is closed. Or sorry, is addressed, is the
interesting.
statement.
Yeah, and that's
so I've seen the speculation online where it's like, not sorry to cut you off, I want to pitch it over to you. The speculation I've seen online is like, all right, we're going to close this quote unquote loophole. In other words, we're just going to change the language so that it's no longer plain like it has been. And then I guess maybe pass some legislation so that they can do it themselves. That's the speculation I've seen.
Yeah, and that does make sense to me. Is it and that kind of plays into the same vibe of the limited license structure. It's just funneling those licenses, and the ability to distribute those low dose beverage products to the people who are already set up to do it, and then it just puts up barriers to entry for any small company trying to do that. Which is too bad, because I was actually hoping that beverages would be our saving grace in times like these, because they've gotten so much traction. I made some solventless beverages, so I was super excited about being able to marry quality with convenience. And I was hoping the fact that that beverage market's already kind of there meant that, we might be around longer than it looks like we're going to be. So it sucks to see that flip. To know that, I do. It's interesting because you see alcohol usage dropping hard. You see cannabis acceptance raising, people turning to cannabis rather than alcohol. So this is big alcohol's way of grabbing onto their piece of the pie that is slipping out of their grasp. Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and one thought I wanted to share. I may not be able to find this comment right now, but I got into an interaction this morning with somebody that is a host of the Dales Report, which is a show that I like to watch. They kind of have people from all the big cannabis companies on. And one of the things that they had said was like, they can see a future that holds uh, beverages, like you said, low dose, be it, but low dose beverages and possibly edibles. I think they said, like I said, I'll find this comment here in just a moment. But that, vapes and flour should be eliminated, and that's, I think, what they said. Oh, maybe they didn't say this on Twitter, maybe it was on their show. They said that's a smart approach to marijuana. They were referencing the prohibitionist group,
Yeah.
and I was just like, I guess what I don't get, and I'm curious what you think about it because you brought it up. Yeah, a lot of people are like, yeah, I've seen even people that you might consider to be anti-hemp in the past day or so say, okay, yeah, this is going through, but there's going to be something that comes out for beverage. Like, even people that you might consider to be anti-hemp are saying there's going to be something that comes out for beverage. It's going to be low dose, and it's just like they're accepting it. And I'm just like, but why do we have a problem with quote unquote high dose beverages and quote unquote high dose edibles? And why can't we figure out a way to allow flour and vapes to be sold like, I just, what say you?
I don't know. Maybe it's just still the boogeyman, and like they'll take a little piece of it because they see, oh, it's. I mean, you see them in Target too. Like, so. I feel like it almost forces an acceptance because you see it at these name brand stores, and it's like, well, if they're accepting it, I should be accepting it, type of thing. And then I just think low dose is a lot easier for people to tolerate. Maybe in their heads, like, I mean, you could still drink a bunch of those and get blitzed. So it's like, you could achieve the same effect as when you're using flower or vapes. But I just think it's like the perception of it. I think low dose is easier for cannabis adverse people to digest. And then I think the fact that beverages have already been accepted at a lot of name brand places makes it a lot um, easier for people to accept.
Yeah. Here's the post I was referencing. It says, um, he's replying to Adam Terry, and he says, I'm with you. I don't want to see any semblance of a ban. I would have preferred regulation around low dose beverages and edibles and done away with THCA flower and synthetics and call it a day. And I just kind of asked, can you help me understand why people only want low dose but think high dose and flower should be banned instead of regulated? Like, especially if I've heard people like air concerns, like they're like concerned about high dose products and the impact they may have on people, and concerns about the flower being sold. And that's why they're almost like, oh, you shouldn't buy THCA hemp flower because it could be bad. And it's like, if you are so concerned it's bad, I feel like those are the products we should regulate. Like if you want them, I don't know how, I'm not calling for any specific regulations, but it just would seem that that would be of utmost importance if you have all those concerns.
Yeah, I think
Um,
if you're thinking through it logically, I would agree. But I
but
think
I did want to give you credit though. Like I do believe that that's the reason. It's just more digestible to start with this low dose,
yeah,
get people kind of acquainted with it. Like I don't know that people truly are, I hope not, opposed to the idea, because that's just frustrating to me. And because I just need, like, I like having a 50 milligram drink or even like a 25 milligram drink. That way I don't have to drink like a fucking 24 pack to feel something, you
yeah,
know?
and well, because the reality is, people are very different in terms of that's
Right.
science fact. We know that. We already have studies on, there's some people who take 2.5 milligrams of THC and are blitzed, and there's some people who don't even feel 100. Literally, there are some people who won't feel it. So like people's endocannabinoid systems are unique to them, and how they process it is unique. So but I mean, again, that's just, it's the education gap. And then it is just the initial perspective, because people who don't understand that have a very low understanding of cannabis, or no understanding. It's just that very initial perception, and anything above 10 milligrams is scary.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And I agree with a lot of the comments that people are dropping. They're saying deschedule the plant, age gate it. Specifically, Lasley from Illinois News Joint says deschedule, age gate, purity test, one plant, one law.
Yeah.
I agree. Dosage caps are unacceptable regulations. I think somebody said it best. I believe it was Rod Kite. He said that dosage caps are a nanny state solution
Yeah.
to a question that can be better solved by an adult's personal preference.
Yep.
I'm not saying we shouldn't have labels or that there shouldn't be low dose products available. I think that's great for people that start. Either way, though, if we get, what's funny is like, in a weird way, obviously I want the sky, but if we get low dose beverages or something, and
Yeah.
they really become ingrained in society, I think it's only a matter of time before people are like, "This is fucking like this is fucking bullshit. I have to drink a whole 24 pack." Because the thing is tolerance rises. It's not going to
Yeah.
take long for certain people, and I think all of a sudden people are going to be like, "Hey, I need like a vodka of this
Right.
instead of like a very light beer of it."
Yeah, it would help people ease into it for sure. And to be honest, not that I agree that that's what it should be, as far as like get rid of THCA and everything and then keep low dose, but that's what I thought was going to happen. I was pretty confident that we were not going to see a hemp ban, just because of the years that we've survived, and then just the use cases that we have, and then the revenue that there is, the tax revenue. um, yeah, so what I thought was going to happen was they would get rid of THCA flower, and they would ban synthetics, and then we would see low dose THC. And I was actually hoping for maybe a little bump in, like instead of 0.31% or something, to make it a little bit more realistic. But yeah, we didn't see that. But there is still time. If there's anything I think can come out of the house, it is possibly saving like low dose beverages. I still like I was talking to Rachel, Hemp Grower Association, and that was like the one thing that she said she could maybe see a light at the end of the tunnel for. I hope she doesn't mind me saying that. Um, but yeah, both agreed that like still looks bleak even on that front. But that's the one thing I could see coming out.
Yeah. And so one person asked, "What does this mean for seed and clone sales?"
That's a great point.
I don't know. I brought it up in my intro, if you will, but this Hawaii Sustainable says no more seeds or clones 1 year from signature. Um, again, I don't know the answer to that yet, but a lot of people are saying no viable seeds. Seeds will have to be novelty hemp seed again.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll have to be novelties, right? Yeah, it's bird seed.
Right.
And then the cultivators now, because if you realize, what's funny is the foundation of these state legal cannabis programs have been this seed. They haven't been, but now they have to say again, um, hey, I got this from Immaculate Conception. It just appeared here.
Yeah. Or you
Right.
ordered your CDs and you got some beans in the lining of the CDs. I think that's what it's gonna have to go back to. And that's one little place where Big Canna has been advocating for the ban of the hemp industry. I think that's one. Genetics is one spot where it might come back to bite them. But yeah, the seeds and clones is going to be an unfortunate one.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the big. That's what I really mean when oftentimes when I'm saying that the Farm Bill has given me more access to the cannabis plant than any state program. I mean, it starts with that, like the
Yeah,
seeds,
yeah,
and then it goes to other silly things like no possession limits, no purchase limits, all of the great thing you can get it delivered to your door. It was a brief period, and again, I'll reiterate, it's not over just yet, but it's definitely looking like it's going to be over soon. It was a brief period of time where cannabis was partially descheduled, and we experienced what that could be like. And I don't think people are. I'm sure not going to forget about it. I don't think people are going to forget about it. And I think that if they disappear from Benny's and Target and Circle K, and the salt shed and on the lakefront or what have you, you can't get them delivered via Grubhub anymore. People are like, what the fuck is this bullshit? And then they're going to Google it, and then they
yeah,
might figure out like, hey, we need to band together and make sure. That's awfully optimistic. I realize. I know some people are like, wow, Cole, you're pretty optimistic. But a man can hope, right?
yeah,
Because it was a cool little period of time. I will say
yeah,
that it's a shame that we couldn't have just descheduled the plan entirely and added a sensible framework and kind of kept the best parts of hemp policy and left the rest, and then just called it cannabis policy because that's what it was. That's what it was
yeah.
supposed to be.
Yeah,
Um,
it hurts to put it in that perspective of just it or that brief moment in the sun that we had that seems like it's coming to an end. And that's like one of the stories I put to Instagram earlier. It's like I'm looking at the bag of pre-rolls that I had a week ago. I was looking at them like, oh, I gotta make more pre-rolls. And now I'm looking at them like, God, I can't wait to make more pre-rolls. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna miss it, man. Like it gives me an entirely different perspective on my day-to-day work right now. So I'm really going to be grateful and basking in everything I do over the next year as things wind down. Because, yeah, I hope we get back to this because it's going to be a big loss. And people who don't understand the implications just yet are going to feel it over once it's gone for sure.
Yeah. And this is going to be a bit of a callback, but I promised people I would share some things I saw online. One of the things I saw was, a friend of mine, Livy McKay, she's been on the show in the past, said um, basically that the Senate is essentially killing 300K jobs in the hemp industry and criminalizing millions of people with the stroke of a pen without a real debate. And actually, Lasley, who's tuned in, replied and said, we've had a debate for more than 5 years now. This is the cost of doing through the loophole. There are operators shouldering magnitude higher costs because they followed state level regs. Shoe's ready to share, to sort of guide the conversation if we needed to. And this is actually a common thing that I've heard is like, well, what are these state people supposed to do that participated in the CRTA or whatever program where they're having to do this 280E thing and everything else. And it's just like, I don't know, call it a day. And like, and I know that sounds tough, but it's like sunk cost fallacy, I think
Yes.
is what it's called.
Yep.
And like,
That.
you
Oh, you
see,
just.
but I should be fair. I should be fair because like some of the bigger operators that I'm about to mention that have segued over to hemp, um, just dropped my lighter. Sorry. They can afford to have their feet in both pools.
Yep.
Maybe some of the smaller operators can't. I don't know. Maybe you're an example of somebody that does, and obviously, like people like River Bluff do both sides of it. They have both a cannabis license and a hemp license. But I guess my thing is like, I don't know. Like, I just thought if the state program sucks, like just kind of like leverage the progress that we've made, which includes avoiding 280E, which is one of the big complaints that these operators have. You can accept credit cards, you can bank. I still hear about banking problems, so I shouldn't say that definitively. Did I already say interstate commerce?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Lassie says, then we're going to turn around and say it's sunk cost fallacy for the hemp market. I mean,
Not
I guess,
really.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can call. The lines are open if anybody does want to call in. I'll reiterate that for people that are just tuning in. ColeMemo.com/live. We had a caller earlier. That was pretty cool. But
So like my thing with that is like, so we just gave up a free market for the sake of 280E. You know, this CR, like what did we just benefit? Unless you're, and well, actually, I'm just gonna leave it there. What did we just benefit by banning the hemp market? If we ban it, like if we were to craft a cannabis market from the hemp market and the cannabis regulated market went away, I could list out a bunch of things that we're benefiting. But if we take away the hemp market and we're left with the regulated cannabis market, who is to benefit besides the operators already in that market? And I would argue that they're not benefiting very much, because I think that the hemp consumer is not your typical dispensary consumer. I think that the hemp consumer is going to much quicker go to the black market. So there's that conversation too. So I know I know it's easy to say as a hemp operator, obviously I want the hemp market to be here, but again, I would happily give up my business to have a functional and optimal market. And the cannabis industry is not that.
like I said, I just think that we should take the best parts of the hemp policy, and I keep saying it just because it's fun and easy to rhyme. Leave the rest, and even improve. Like I say, it shouldn't just be that hemp is tested or only required to be tested for the Delta 9 level. That's silly.
Right. Yeah, no, the testing requirements needed to be raised. They needed to test for pesticides, for heavy metals, for mold and mildew. We needed age gating regulations on the books, even if people were mostly already doing it. There were step ups that hemp needed to make, but again, it didn't need to get banned.
Hey, so Lasley's on. Let's do a quick sound check. I want to make sure you can hear. How's it going, Lasley?
All good? I can hear you. How's it going, man?
You can hear? How's it going,
Yes.
man? I'll just give you the floor because I think we may have
Good, how are you?
I'm good, dude. I'm smoking, so I'm good.
No, look, I 100%, this sucks. This sucks for every business owner out there. But this is the result of this. Why didn't anybody start selling hemp in 2018? We all understood this was a gray market. The Senate did not intend to legalize intoxicating hemp, and this is the result of that. And it fucking sucks. Sorry, but this is what has been coming because we built in this gray area.
I guess my question is, I agree with you, and I definitely agree with the intent thing. My question is, why don't you think we saw people sort of, and by people I mean like the industry, sort of embrace the progress we did get and push for more?
Well, you understand that and they were protecting their investments, A, but B, this is just up to. Sorry, I'm getting situated here. This is up to our legislators. The reason we got in this situation is because we had, 7 years between farm bills, and also just the idea that hemp wouldn't even exist if we had just allow people into the regulated markets.
Oh, I agree with that, and I agree that it's a result of, you want to call it a loophole, whatever. But I would just still make the argument that we're not benefiting from this. The only people that benefit from the hemp ban, like my answer to like this is the result of a loophole would be who cares? You know, like it's what again? Why would it not be what's the most optimal and functional way forward versus these guys that already invested a bunch? Let's make sure they make their money back.
Okay, so do you think we're going to build enforcement regulations? We're going to build an enforcement system? Because that's really what we're missing now with hemp. I mean, really the biggest problems: age gate, purity testing. It's all the stuff I said before. You know,
Yep.
are we going to let the DEA go after those people? Do you want, that kind of restriction built in? I'm fine with whatever. I think we should build a market that makes sense. But the idea that we should start a business, I think the problem here is just unfair advantage on every single side. We should build a market with a fair advantage, and we just haven't.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And it's just my opinion that the regulated cannabis market is not the way to that functional optimal market.
That's what I think is unfair, and this is like it is the state market, with the 280E and everything. Like that's the part that's
Well, and I would
unfair.
agree that it's unfair. It was unfair in favor of hemp, but then there was an easy age gate, require testing. There was a leveling of the playing field that could have happened without banning the industry.
Right.
Because and even if we do, so the 300,000 jobs that were lost, there wasn't a way to integrate this without just 300,000 jobs go away,
And I think like Tom said earlier, Tom Howard, like perhaps we'll see some push, with cannabis policy, but maybe I'm being too optimistic with that. I want to get back to the question of like fairness and like I say, sometimes it feels like hemp is versus like the structure of it where anybody can get involved. That is fair. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
I agree 100%. I really think, yet again, you understand that my personal belief is we should deschedule it. It should be like alcohol. It should be a few $1,000s to get completely started, to have an operational license and business in your state and do whatever you want, no dosage caps. And I really think we should live in that world. We just don't. And so, yet again, everybody understood this is not what the Senate meant. And so this idea of this looming behind us, it's just always been there.
But have you seen perspectives like that? This was a new perspective I saw recently. I don't even remember the individual's name. He said he was like a lobbyist, though, if I remember correctly, that worked with Mitch McConnell, that like he specifically put that language in there. And like, no, Mitch McConnell didn't know, but they were just kind of like, because they dropped the term industrial from 2014 to 2018. And then they added like the salts of isomers, like all the different things that are like consumable components. And it like really begs the question, like, of course, Mitch McConnell did not intend this, but it's like, okay, then why is that plain language there?
Why did it take us that long to get to intoxicating hemp being sold? And why are all these senators right now happily putting this in there to get rid of it then?
Oh, no, I agree. I feel like what they've done is they've realized like, oh shit, that language was bad. Because it clearly reads and it's causing this problem in all states. So now we're going to amend it. But to me, that's like actually more credence to my idea that it's not people call it a loophole. It's like a loophole to what? It's clear language. And the fact that they're amending it right now shows like kind of further solidifies that it's not. You know what I mean?
American jurisprudence is based on the idea of intent. And if you took this to court, it's pretty clear that this was not the intent of the writers.
Right. And I'm not a legal professional, but like a legal professional I've had on the show. And I think Tom Howard, who's also a legal professional, has pushed back on this in the past. But one legal professional I've spoke to has said sort of intent is irrelevant. And then Tom has said, no, it's not.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think intent is relevant in the law.
But if it is, then I would wager like specific to Illinois, and I'm passionate about this specific issue. Like the law starts off with what they're spelling out as the intent, and they specifically start off with allowing a law enforcement to focus on violent and non-violent property crimes. And it's like, or sorry, I meant to say to focus on violent and property crime.
Yeah.
We, the General Assembly, find that cannabis should be legal. And it's like, but then you continue to see arrests. It's like, if that was the spirit of the law, you get the weird point I'm trying to make.
I'm
here.
behind you, brother. I'm behind you, man. I'm with you 100%. I just think that hemp is a gray area. It has resulted in some wonderful things. No disagreement there. I've used some of your products, man. Loved them.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me. I was like,
No,
I
no.
was like, what has he got?
Sorry, but
No.
but we built these on shaky footing just because this is not what they meant to do. I believe that a lot of senators truly believe that we are running a 50-state democracy style experiment with cannabis legalization, which is the reason when you have 25 different states with different legalization rules. And there's even been some senators today come out and support this idea. I do not want to be the person agreeing with Ted Cruz, but even Ted Cruz has supported this idea that, like, yeah, we should just give hemp and cannabis to the states and let them run their experiments. If that's what they want to do, that's what they should do. And I think we should all build our businesses under this one set of beautiful agreements that we know are real and that are not based on some kind of, oh, this interpretation and this reads this and this reads that. We should just have a clear set of rules and that's what these are extinguishing. I hate it. Yet again, I am not in agreement with this, but this has been coming for a long time because the Senate did not intend this to happen. And even if we had made it $100 billion a year, $200 billion a year, if we had employed 10 million people in this country, I still don't think they would care.
Yeah, that's a shame. Like I agree with everything that you said. I think I think it literally just comes down to like the for me and you, it's the difference of like I mean, honestly, I think we agree on everything. The only
No, and I don't know if you know, but Lasley like consumes these products and is
yeah, no,
with
I know of Michael. Yeah. No,
Okay,
and I
cool.
appreciate the shout out on the products too. No, I agree on everything you said. I just think that hemp could have easily been cannabis if it were just now amended into law that way. So like as far as the way forward through regulated cannabis scares me, and I don't see progress coming.
Without
and
doubt, I agree that this could have been the way to do it. We could have just one plant, one rules. We'll go with hemp rules. Everything is now under the same laws. We'll put some age gates up. That's not what the Senate wants. I don't believe that's what Congress wants. And so that's the reason this is happening. I don't believe the Congress wants 50-state legal marijuana.
Yeah, that I completely agree. Yeah, again, I think we agree on everything. Yeah.
So this is a good segue. And I asked this question earlier. I'm curious of your perspective, Lasley, and Mason, if you have any other thoughts to add, of course you can. But I am actually in a weird way. Like I'm sad, of course, just like you said, Lasley, that if this goes through, if this were to occur, like this is like, I think the coolest thing that happened in cannabis that I can remember. But if it came to pass, I'm almost like in a weird way, maybe I'm too foolishly optimistic, but I'm like, hey, we're finally over the hump. We don't have to make this silly arbitrary distinction anymore. We can finally just talk about cannabis. Are you optimistic that like if this comes to pass, that we can all come together and spin in a circle and play music? That's me being too optimistic. But what do you see the future of cannabis?
I'm happy to sound crazy, but I have felt that there is like really a new era in cannabis coming, not just at a national level, but at a state level too right now. We're about to turn the page on a lot of stuff. I've been yelling at everyone for years, hey, look out, these hemp businesses are in danger. These hemp businesses are in danger. I've always thought this, but I do kind of believe, and maybe this is just the most absolute insane positivity, optimism I can have, that this is setting the stage for more federal reform. That if we can close down what was this little experiment here, very cool, we learned a lot. By God, we learned a lot, all of us. But I think this is how we move forward with other stuff. Hopefully we skip rescheduling and we go to descheduling. But yeah, I think there's only a positive forward momentum for cannabis. Here's the thing too, people don't realize Trump's cabinet is very heavily invested in the hemp space. And so if there's not some next move coming, I would be heartily surprised, because a lot of his cabinet has a lot of money tied up in intoxicating hemp.
Interesting. That I didn't know. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are more optimistic than I am on next steps for cannabis. And that's not just because I'm a hemp business owner. I'm just not. Yeah, I hope you guys are right. I hope that we see some progression come from the cannabis industry after this. Schedule 3 still terrifies me. So I hope we see descheduling. I hope we do see some progressive steps.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And yeah, I just, like I say, I can't help but I wonder where we go from here, because it has felt for me very frustrating as an advocate, because again, anytime I like bring up hemp, I get people are automatically like, "Oh, you like THCP sprayed flower?" And it's like, "No, I don't know anybody that does. I'm just talking about the cool things about the policy, the drinks getting delivered to the door and stuff like that." Like, yeah, that stuff should go. But I'm like hopeful that we're over that hump and we don't have to like talk about that anymore. And then we can like just talk about like what the policy should look like. And yeah, maybe it might not look like what I want or what we want, but at least we're all like talking about and debating the same policy instead of having this like little like arbitrary like split in policy, you know? I don't
Is
know.
there anything stopping THCP and Delta 8 from being sold in dispensaries?
Yeah,
I believe Delta 8 is not allowed to be sold anymore, but it was.
THCP is the same. You can't sell any more converted cannabinoids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the problem, though. Here's the little thing that I had not people have been thinking about. This is going to legalize CBD isolate. You're not going to be able to produce any minor cannabinoids from hemp, and so there's a lot of products inside dispensaries that are going to be on the chopping block if this goes through the way it's written.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Well,
Well,
that's even more scary for the the CBD, the minor compound consumer. Because
Yeah.
like our products that we're using solventless CBD are all super high in CBC, which that was one I was really surprised to see on the chopping block. I really didn't understand why CBC got lumped in there, but yeah, I'd agree. That's scary too, because that's it shines a light on the lack of education again, because CBC, even especially in synergy with THC, extremely effective at treating pain. You put CBD, THC, and CBC together, and they literally stop the pain signaling. So, yeah, that's scary to see.
For
and
what
one
it's
thing,
worth,
go
for
ahead.
what I see for the next year or two is we go through with this. They might carve out something for minor cannabinoid production if we're lucky. I don't see hemp drink saving. I don't see him getting saved. People had this idea that they were the Trojan horse, and even I kind of thought, damn, they're big, man. I mean, shit,
Yeah,
they're
it's hard.
everywhere. But I really don't think we're going to end up saving those. I think what's going to happen is we're going to close this down. Trump's going to come out. He's going to do Schedule 3. And then maybe if that doesn't push long enough, the Republicans might throw a Hail Mary and do some kind of legal cannabis before the midterms. And then we're just kind of playing in state markets again. I really do believe that's where we're headed. I don't believe Schedule 3 is the risk people think it is. We've been operating under a completely illegal Schedule 1 drug for the last 25 years, and we don't do any raids anymore. We don't have the kind of DEA enforcement that we used to. So I wonder if Schedule 3 probably just be the same, and we just get the benefits of research and tax relief burden.
Yeah. One thing somebody mentioned earlier, it was kind of your point you made earlier, Lasley. They say IDOA proposed amendments, and actually, yeah, Illinois News Joint did some reporting on this. There were proposed amendments or discussion of amendments around input of hemp and minor cannabinoids. And yeah, I just wonder, like, obviously, I'm sure the process is still going to go forward or whatever, but if this comes to pass, like, what does that mean for some of these people that have relied on, sourcing those minor cannabinoids for their products. I know some of them are pretty popular, like even THCV, I think is one that's pretty popular. So you got to wonder if they're going to have to start devoting canopy space to something like that, or what sort of ramifications that'll have.
I just think with the products reduced, I don't think they'll be able to, make the math work on growing just stuff for minors.
Yeah, especially like THCV, because you're talking about like Illinois, only indoor. You you got the 2 farms that you did a story on that can grow outdoor. Growing THCV is super low abundance, naturally occurring. So the overhead, man, that THCV would be crazy expensive to produce in Illinois.
Yeah. Sorry that I keep flipping you sideways, Mason. Every time I read a comment, it flips Mason sideways. He said that's been emblematic of the day, the few days he's been having.
Back to reality.
Makes sense.
We agree, Jeremy. We agree. Cannabis, cannabis has always been, I would say in my book, it's always been generally recognized as safe, even though we haven't done that yet.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. Any other thoughts though? Just I feel like we've had a really expansive conversation. I really appreciate you jumping on, Lasley.
Yeah, man. You guys are both awesome. So I really don't hate that this is happening to you, man. I just saw you crossed over a really big revenue mark the other day. That was super cool. I love your business breakdowns, by the way. Some of my favorite Instagram content right now is you breaking like the numbers behind everything. I don't know. This is going to be a wild year. Like I said, this is going to be a year of change for Illinois and for national level politics. We got a ton of licenses coming online. I mean, the market's about to change, good and bad, and there's a lot coming. And so I don't think that this is a slowdown for a lot of stuff. And in a lot of ways, I think this will speed up a lot of advocacy and laws and people's ideas. Like you said earlier, man, when these ladies that have been having their girls' book nights go down to Target and holy shit, where is the wink? They're going to be pissed. They're they're going to start contacting people. People will start to notice this will affect their day to day, and that's where we're going to get real movement.
I do agree with that. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I hope that I'm not foolishly optimistic, but I'm optimistic that if people, like you said, that was really well put. If people see them disappear from the shelves, that they'll be like, hey, where is that? And then maybe they'll Google it, and then maybe they'll try to get back what they lost. It'll be interesting. Somebody said something that we said earlier. There's a 365-day provision. Maybe that's a good question to close on, unless you have other topics. I think you had briefly maybe mentioned some of your speculation earlier, Lasley, but what do we think? Feel free, either of you, to go, but what do we think? Will we see like some rally for new legislation? Because I have been like continually surprised by the hemp lobby. Like every time they're on the ropes, it's like Rocky. They come back, like the Texas thing was insane, for example. I thought it was dead in Texas. But what do we think? Do you think there's going to be some big rally for certain things? Like I say, I keep hearing people say low dose beverages, which I think is something you had mentioned earlier, Lasley. Or you kind of speculated on what the future might look like for that. But what do we think? Like, will this reinvigorate some energy in this next year? Or
without a doubt. I mean, we're going to see court cases. People are going to sue over this. Hell, maybe in the end we get legislation. Maybe the Supreme Court's just like, whoa, this is screwed up, and we just get legal cannabis out of this in the end anyway. Who knows, man? But I don't think that we're going to see a lot of advocacy. We're going to see a lot of pushback. I don't know what will happen in the end. I really do think that you got to look at what the Senate intends to happen. I don't think they want 50 state legal cannabis yet. And so I don't know in the end what we'll get. But I think a lot of hope's going to be in these Supreme Court cases or court cases that'll get pushed up to the appellates in the Supreme Court. And then just a lot of like, hey, we need to come together. And the idea, one of the interesting things here is like, there's a lot of like people from within that a lot of folks on the hemp side might not agree with that have a lot of interest in keeping this legal. GTI, Curaleaf, all have these gigantic, brands they've built in hemp now that put a lot of money behind this if they've already done this investment. So I hope we'll see a lot of pushback, but I got to say that the one thing I don't see happening is them coming in and letting us keep this.
I want to pass it over to Mason for your thoughts, but I did think this was an interesting point. In 1 year, it's the midterms. I mean, that's kind of an interesting development. I didn't think about that. Maybe I know that there are much bigger things. I don't want to be that stoner that's like, maybe this will be our year, man. But I'm just saying, some people are looking for that easy win, and these days that is an easy one, cannabis. But Mason, sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your ability to respond to that question.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, reiterate what your question was. I'm going to tell you my take on like what I'm hoping for, but
so basically, it was inspired from somebody that asked, there's these 365 days, and you mentioned it actually, I think, on your story. And the question was like, do you think we'll see a little bit of energy or like people sort of coming together in this year to sort of, because again, we keep hearing the murmurs of the low beverage thing.
Yeah, I think Michael summed it up perfectly. You're definitely going to see people suing and rallying. I'll be advocating as I was. What progress comes from it? I hope we do see some steps towards a more functional industry, states' rights, pulling back on some of the license limitations, because in a very, what's the word I'm looking for? On a personal level, selfishly, I'm hoping that I can finagle my way in there. If we make enough noise, talk about all the revenue that's going to be lost from the hemp industry, I'm hoping somebody puts their hands up and says, hey, we got to grandfather these guys in. You know what I mean? That would be great. Just avenues for the little guy to play would be fantastic in every state, because that's my problem with Illinois. I really don't want to leave my home state. I'd lived in Arizona for a few years. Besides that, I'm born and raised in Chicago and now live 2 hours north up here on the farm. So I would love to stay here and do what I love. But yeah, we'll see what avenues come out of it. But you're definitely going to see an uproar.
I would say Illinois has a bunch of unutilized craft grow licenses that have been issued but have not been operational, that we could sure switch those over pretty quick.
Yeah, I know. I haven't talked to many people that hold licenses, but that idea has been floating around in my head a lot. And it's just about finding, the right fit, the right partner. Because the big benefit of the last, everything's got to change, but the big benefit of my last 4 years is I got to raise my son, be at home. So it would have to be the right situation. I do have like the land to get the cultivation going as far as a facility, but it would have to be the right partner that aligns with, my morals, just like any business I would go into with somebody. So I'm hopeful. That's an avenue that I'll be looking into over the next year. I haven't met anybody face to face that, wants to, or that has a license to, partner up with, but it's going to be an avenue that I'm going down, that I'm going to consider. But yeah, I got a year to figure out something. So maybe the industry shakes up to where I can keep doing the sun drenched thing. Maybe I can partner up with somebody. But yeah, I definitely think that there's going to be, I do agree, there's going to be a change over the next year. The fact that you saw these beverages in places like Target, I don't see them just stripping that away and keeping it there. Michael, I'd be curious on what you think. Do you think that there's a route back to, beverages in grocery stores from cannabis companies somewhat within the next year or two? Or do you think that's a longer road?
I don't know about the next year or two. I do think it's got to be. But here's the thing: Target was happy to experiment in a single state where it was legal. So in Minnesota, their drinks were legal there, and that's the reason that Target put them in there. So if we introduce legislation in these states that allow for this, maybe they'll start looking into it in other states.
Yeah.
I do think it has to come together on a national level. The thing is, Target, Walmart, Kroger, all these giant companies, they want to sell you weed. They don't care.
Oh yeah.
They want to sell you whatever you will buy. And so as
yeah.
long as they can cross that single little line with their lawyers that are like, it's cool, man, then yeah, they're happy to sell you anything that they can make money off of.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll get there legally. Yet again, I do think that the midterms being around then is a really good sign. It's been an ace in the sleeve of everyone for the past like 30 years that you can legalize cannabis. You can get a bunch of votes. You can legalize cannabis and get a bunch of votes tomorrow. And so I really hope that, maybe we just use that. Maybe Trump is on the ropes, which he already is.
Yeah.
And so throws in and just goes, all right, let's just do it. So
Yeah.
fingers
The
crossed,
thing-
man.
To address your question briefly, and I know I mentioned this earlier, Mason, but I wanted to finally display it on screen. The thing that gives me a little bit of hope is this reporting by Marijuana Moment. Now, I want to be clear. This is not, I shouldn't have said gives me hope. I'll read the statement. Manufacturers of beverage alcohol, one of the most highly regulated consumer products, urge Congress to act immediately to remove hemp-derived THC products from the marketplace until a robust federal regulatory framework is established.
Yeah.
We stand ready to work with Congress and the administration to enact regulations that protect consumers and ensure a safe, orderly marketplace for these products. And actually, I'm not finding it here, but the rest of the statement I saw was for these intoxicating products once this loophole is addressed. And so I don't actually see that in this statement here. I wanted to pull up the full article. Maybe that was a different reporting source. But that when I saw that other statement with the appended until this loophole is addressed, that made me think, all right, we're going to close this. And then we big alcohol beverage manufacturers of beverage alcohol, we're going to come up with a framework and we're just going to come out with our drinks. That's the thing, to Mason, that I think is going to happen. And I wanted to, that's why I was like, I started off by saying I'm hopeful, and I'm like, that sounds actually depressing when you think about it. Not that it wouldn't be cool to have weed drinks, but only by the big alcohol companies. That would kind of suck,
Yeah, I could read that like pessimistically. I could read that as like the competition. So, have we seen big beverage companies, Budweiser or anybody like that, or is it
The
mostly
closest thing I feel like I've seen, it's like it's like kind of it's Pabst,
Yeah.
but that's like,
So that's where I see like that's the big companies saying like, hey, shut down these little guys that are operating in the gray area. They have this unfair advantage, and we stand ready to work with you once we can get something more legitimate on the books. So I think that's just them trying to stop the little guy from getting an unfair advantage. But I mean, again, I'll hang with you on the optimistic side. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at it from this perspective, like I said, these giant companies have to get over that line. So they're just letting right now they're bothered that, hey, all these little guys are getting away with it. If they would just say, if the Congress would just come out and say, hey, man, you can do this, we'd make 10 milligram Budweisers with THC and everything. And so I really do think that that's what they want. That's what these people are asking for is, all right, let's do it. But let's actually do it. So let's fully legalize it, and everybody can be on the right thing. And I don't see that big alcohol wants to destroy all these small players. Craft beer is one of the largest and most vibrant communities in the world right now. I think that they want a place to play. I think that, hey, all these alcohol companies know that younger people are drinking less alcohol. They want into THC. That's really what this is.
yeah, no, well said. And somebody else agrees. They say, Michael, I think you're right. You make fantastic points.
Hey.
And I want to be clear, Mason. I feel like what I just said is not optimistic. It sounds like sort of, if, like I said, and I guess Laszlo, you made a good point. If it was open to craft producers, like, because there has been a vibrant craft brewing industry, I guess that'd be cool if there was a low enough barrier to entry. But just the way I read it, maybe I'm just too negative. But I'm like, I don't know. I think that especially that one quote that I had where it was, I have it on my phone, but I pulled up this Marijuana Moment version of it. But they basically said, once the loophole is addressed, we would love to work with Congress to enact meaningful regulations. In other words, like cut all these other people out, and then we're gonna like work with you to enact the regulations that work for us. And I was like, oh no, that sounds bad. But that's just my interpretation of it. Other people can have different interpretations, and we'll see how it plays out, you know.
Yep.
But I don't know. Just to round out the point, I'm hopeful, as we've said a few different times, that we'll see that people will see what we had, and we'll be able to apply pressure in some way to get it back. I hope we don't lose it at all, but who knows? Trying to be optimistic in what seems like an uncertain time, because hopefully we get a descheduled world. I don't know. It seems like rescheduling is going to probably happen before that, if that happens, you know. But I'm just trying to be optimistic. I don't know how to end this on an optimistic note. So anyways, I appreciate you both for joining me. And Lasley, thank you for calling in. We're going to have to do another podcast. I know we've been juggling that around lately. Mason, I appreciate you for reaching out to me, because I did not plan to go live. Mason just hit me up for folks that are tuning in. And thank you to everybody that did tune in. We've got about 172 people tuned in right now.
Wow.
Yeah, 120 people on YouTube, 50 people on Twitter. If you can smash the like button, we'd appreciate that. And Michael, Mason, do you guys want to give plugs for your handles while we got people's attention before we go?
Sure, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, at Hi Lasley, man. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on YouTube. Got some new YouTube stuff I'm cooking up right now, covering all this especially. So check me out.
Yeah. Resin Farmer Mace on Instagram, Sun Drenched Farm on Instagram, and sundrenchedfarm.com. Shop while you can. Yeah. Appreciate you
stuff,
having us on.
Yeah, it's good stuff, folks. I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah, so check it out. We'll throw the links in the show notes. I'll try to throw that in after the fact. If you haven't already hit the like button and subscribed, please do that. Check out my work at colememo.com, and we will see you on the next episode, everybody. Take care.